I never saw myself as someone waiting for surprises. My life had settled into a steady, quiet routine. Morning coffee, daily errands, an almost silent home, and a husband more connected to his inbox than to me. I'd convinced myself that love wasn't about passion, but about persistence. Then, one ordinary day shifted everything. My car broke down on a lonely road. Typical. I sighed, drumming my fingers on the steering wheel and reaching for my phone. I didn't bother calling my husband. He never answered anyway, so I rang my son, hoping he could come help. "Mom, I can't get away right now," he said, clearly annoyed. "But I'll send Ethan." Ethan, my son's best friend. I hadn't seen him in ages. He used to be the gangly, sweet kid who raided my fridge and always called me ma'am with a cheeky smile. I didn't have many options, so I agreed. About 15 minutes later, a sleek black car pulled up, and Ethan stepped out. But he wasn't the boy I remembered. Gone was the awkward teenager. In his place stood a confident, broad-shouldered man with messy dark hair and sharp features. There was something new in his presence, something magnetic. "Hey, Mrs. Carter," he greeted, flashing that same grin. "Need a lift?" I smiled, trying to ignore the flutter in my stomach. "Looks like it." The moment I sat in his car, something shifted. It wasn't just that he'd grown up. It was his quiet self-assurance, the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't watching. "It's been a while," he said, eyes flicking to me, then back to the road. "Yes," I replied, folding my hands. "You've changed," he chuckled. "Growing up does that." The conversation was easy, yet beneath it was a tension I couldn't ignore. His voice, the scent of his cologne, the way he tapped the wheel, everything about him made me feel aware. At a red light, he turned and said softly, "You haven't changed at all." His tone made my pulse skip. I laughed it off. "That's what happens with age. You just settle." His jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. We finished the drive in silence. Once we got to my house, I reached for the door. But before I could step out, his voice stopped me. "You don't have to settle, you know." I turned to him, caught off guard. There was something unreadable in his eyes. "See you around, Mrs. Carter?" he said with that same smile. But it meant something more now. That night, I replayed the drive over and over. I tried to convince myself it was harmless, that I was imagining things. But I couldn't shake it. And when I saw him again, it didn't feel like coincidence. I was at the store, reaching for something too high when he appeared behind me. "Need help?" he asked, voice low and familiar. I turned, startled. Ethan. He grabbed the item for me, casually holding up his own basket. I barely noticed what was in it. He was standing too close, too warm, too present. "Just grabbing a few things," I said, trying to sound unaffected. "Me too." His eyes drifted over me in a slow, deliberate way that made my skin tingle. I needed to get away. "Thanks for the help," I said, gripping the box. But then he asked, "Can I ask you something?" I nodded. "Are you happy?" The question hit something raw inside me. I should have laughed, brushed it off, but I froze. He didn't press, just watched me. "Of course," I replied, forcing a smile. He didn't argue, just nodded. Good. Then he walked away, leaving me rattled. That night at dinner, my husband sat across from me, absorbed in his phone, mumbling about work. I barely responded. I kept hearing Ethan's question in my head. It only got worse. I found myself checking my phone for messages that never came, hoping somehow. Then one day, I saw him again, out walking. But this time, he wasn't alone. A girl clung to his arm, laughing. Jealousy hit me like a wave. I had no right to feel that way, but I did. He noticed me, said something to the girl, then jogged over. "She's just a friend," he said, as if reading my mind. I blinked. "I wasn't..." His smile was knowing. "I like that you care." I should have walked away, but I didn't, and neither did he. Things blurred after that. He began showing up unexpectedly, messaging me, looking at me in ways I hadn't been looked at in years, and I responded. Then came the night it all changed. My husband was working late. The house was too quiet. When the doorbell rang, I already knew who it was. "You shouldn't be here," I said, yet stepped aside to let him in. He entered without hesitation. "I can't stop thinking about you," he said, "and I don't think you can stop thinking about me either." I didn't deny it. We both knew the truth. When he reached for me, I didn't pull away. It was electric, wrong, real. I told myself it was just once, a mistake. But once opened the door to everything. Ethan didn't act like it was a one-time thing. He didn't avoid me. If anything, he became bolder. And I let him. He made me feel seen, desired, alive. Something I hadn't felt in so long. I kept trying to end it. I even told him we couldn't do it anymore. But he didn't argue. He just touched me. Lightly, deliberately, and I crumbled. Again, it didn't stop. And I knew deep down it wouldn't. Eventually, the truth started to show. A missed text, a glance that lingered too long. Until one night, my husband looked up from his phone and said, calmly, "Is there something you want to tell me?" I froze. He already knew. "Don't lie," he said softly. I opened my mouth, but there was no excuse, no undoing any of it, and in that moment, the worst part wasn't the guilt. It was realizing I wasn't even sorry, and that terrified me more than anything.